Hello, I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening to new possibilities. Just imagine that your unconscious mind could clearly communicate with you so that you could understand yourself and what's blocking you at a much deeper level. My guest in this episode is David John Oates, who's been the main proponent of furthering the fascinating field of reverse speech. He's developed new theories, designed therapeutic and training techniques, and written over 15 books on reverse speech. He's instigated some of the first mainstream studies and presented reverse speech on thousands of shows. So I'm delighted he's joining me on the Possibility Hub to share this fascinating area that's been called the discovery of the seventh sense. Hello, David. Welcome to the Possibility Hub. I'm really excited about this conversation. From my side, coming from a sort of NLP hypnosis background, we've always said that magic is hidden in the language that we speak.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, definitely. And you've taken that a step further with your work in reverse speech.
Yes.
And it's something I've came across quite some years back, particularly with listening to song lyrics and things like that,
Yes.
hearing the hidden messages. And I know that a lot of people listening to this may not understand or realize what it is. So I think that's a good place to start by explaining what is reverse speech, what is hidden in our language.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate the opportunity. I always like to get the word out there about my research. Very simply, if human speech is recorded and played backwards, mixed amongst the gibberish at regular intervals every 15 or 20 seconds, you can hear very clear phrases amongst the gibberish. I'll play you some examples of these as we go on. That is a reflection of what is happening on the conscious and unconscious level. I maintain this is a natural function of language, another human sense, that as the brain is constructing the sounds of speech, it's putting them together in such a way that we're saying two things, one forwards and one backwards. The conscious mind speaks forwards, the unconscious mind speaks in reverse. That's the basic theory around reverse speech.
So in terms of therapy, that has huge implications in
absolutely.
helping people understand the unconscious patterns, because look, 95% of the time we're running from the programs and patterns stored at the unconscious level. So if you get a fast track on what that could be that's sabotaging people, that could save weeks and months of therapy.
Oh, months, yes. Well, I use reverse speech primarily in therapy. That's how I make my living. Like you, I'm also a hypnotherapist and master practitioner in NLP, so I've incorporated those techniques into my work. Reverse speech, when we're talking about psychological issues, is very much metaphoric in nature. It speaks in metaphor and archetype. I've developed a therapeutic technique similar to visualization, where I will have someone visualize their metaphors that I've already found in the transcript, and then we will change the pictures and change the metaphor. A little bit more complicated than that. This is a very simple form. And so as we change the metaphor, we're changing the behavior that the metaphor represents. So that's how I use it in therapy. But you're right, it will short circuit the therapeutic process by weeks. Let me pull up an example, very simple example that will graphically illustrate this, and also introduce your listeners into how reverse speech sounds. So the one I'm looking for is...
Yeah, because you need a keen ear, and that's, I would imagine, part of the training that you run, so that people are starting to be trained to listen for specific
That's right.
things.
Yeah,
So you really
it takes a good ear to hear it, and yes, you do need to be trained to hear it. I am actually... that's no wonder I can't find it. I had MP3 files only selected. I was looking to find this example. I couldn't see it, and I had MP3 files only accepted. So,
Do I need to give you permission to share?
no, that's okay. No, I won't be playing. I won't be playing video. I'll be playing audio, and
So as you find it, what are we listening out for here?
Okay, this is. I'll play this example. This is from a client who had money problems. Okay, and she's talked to me about her money issues. So let's play this forwards.
She and I need to work this issue out, but it started to bring up all my money fears and stuff. And the thing is if I know I start sourcing fear again, I'm gonna go way downhill.
Want to do that.
Okay, now I've isolated a section of this. I'm going to play it backwards at 3 speeds and see if you can hear her say, "Work on my grief."
She and I need to work this.
Wrong one. Here we go.
Work on my grief. Work on my grief.
You hear that?
That's very clear.
Now let me play you the whole lot backwards, and you'll hear how it appears amongst the gibberish. You'll hear the gibberish, then a slight pause, work on my grief, then back to gibberish once again.
Right here. Work on my grief.
Did you hear that in the gibberish there? Work on my grief?
Yes, it's quite.
So that is her unconscious telling me that in order to resolve her money issues, we've got to resolve grief issues. And as it turned out, when I was working with this woman, it goes back to her childhood grief she had from her father, which affected her ability to make money. And using regular therapy, that may have taken months to get to. And
because
her
you
speech is able to get to it
with money, would you?
No, you wouldn't think so. No, that's not an area you would go. She had a very abusive father, and father withheld money from her as she was growing up. And so that's where it came from. And so she was short on money because of grief issues she carried with father. You will be amazed what triggers behavioral patterns. Lifelong patterns can be triggered by just one or two events in our childhood. The young mind is so pliable and susceptible. Anything can form a structure that takes us throughout our life. Right?
So how did you come across this? Because I know you've been working in this field for a long, long time. And I also know that you come from an electronics background.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, you were in a band and playing rock and roll kind of thing.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I was indeed.
So how did you get into all this? How did you discover reverse speech, and what triggered you to continue developing and working with it?
Well, yes, I have a strong background in electronics. I'm a ham radio operator, and I worked on the audio for the band I played for. I'm also a youth worker by profession. Well, I was back in those days. And in 1984, I was running a halfway house for street kids. And one of the kids came in and he had a recording of a minister preaching a sermon. And it's preaching a sermon about the evils of rock and roll music. And if you take rock and roll backwards, play rock and roll backwards, you can hear these satanic messages. And he told me this, and I go, no, get out of here. So I went home and rewired some equipment, actually the first song I played was Stairway to Heaven. Got that Stairway to Heaven and played it backwards, and I could hear the phrases. And I'm going, whoa, how on earth are they getting there? And the first thing I thought of, well, it's been manipulated. The soundtrack's been altered. So I checked for deliberate manipulation, and there was no manipulation. It was occurring purely by the way the lyrics were sung at that point in time that reversed to say something different. So it was a phonetic reversal. I was fascinated from day one. I really was. And I played my whole musical collection backwards over the next 3 or 4 months, finding numerous backward messages. Many of them were not satanic, as the fundamentalist Christians claim. They talked about normal, everyday stuff. So that's how I got started. Then, in 1987, I was writing a book on the whole phenomena. This is before I'd even discovered the human speech. And I accidentally found an example, backward message in normal human speech. And this is the very first backward message I found in speech. So here's the forward. You'll recognize this famous soundtrack.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The last one, walking on the moon. And
Yes.
backwards he says, man will spacewalk.
Man will spacewalk. Man will spacewalk.
Well, I was stunned when I heard that. I'm thinking, well, that's what he's doing. He's walking in space. Well, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories whether we went to the moon or not. That's a whole other topic altogether.
Isn't it just?
But the thing that intrigued me was that we had this backward message about spacewalk. And here he was allegedly walking on the moon. And I just found that incredible. It never occurred to me that this phenomenon could occur in normal human speech. And then the same day, I found another example in speech. This is all back around February, March of '87. And the other example I found, oops, wrong file, sorry. All right, where are we? No one. The other example I found in normal human speech on the same day was a live commentary of the JFK assassination. So let me just pull this one up. And this also had a very stunning backward message in it. And here we go. So I'm going to pick up the soundtrack right where the shooting occurs. So here's the forwards.
Just a moment, please. Something has happened in the motorcade route. Stand by, please. Parkland Hospital, there has been a shooting. Parkland Hospital has been advised to stand by for a severe gunshot wound.
And backwards he says, he shot bad, hold it, try and look up.
He shot bad, hold it, try and look up.
And again.
He shot bad, hold it, try and look up.
Did you hear that one okay?
Yes,
So,
I do. Yes, I
so
do.
I was stunned. I thought, well, this is what he would have been thinking. JFK has been shot, stop everything, look around. And I stopped doing music from that day onwards, and I haven't done music since then. And I moved solely onto human speech. And when I started finding these phrases all throughout speech, and many times they were revealing what the person was thinking at the time of speaking, I was absolutely enthralled. I went to my local library. This is, of course, back before the days of the internet, and searched through linguistic books and psychology books, and there was no reference anywhere to this phenomena of backward speech. And it dawned on me, I'd made a brand new discovery. This was something completely new that no one's ever discovered before. And that started my career in reverse speech. And I've written 20 books on the topic since then, and done lots of radio shows and TV appearances. And yeah, so it's been an exciting life.
How did you start? Did you just start recording speeches, and then because of your radio and electronic background, start running them backwards and at different speeds?
Correct. Yes, I rewired a cassette player to play in reverse, and I could speed it up and slow it down with a little speed control I built myself. And so that's how I started running tapes, running audio cassettes forwards and backwards. And I had, back in those days, I had one of those little cassette players they have in cars rigged up to a battery. You know, it was very crude. Back in my early days, I worked with a reel-to-reel player, and of course nowadays it's all done on software. So
yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yes,
I'm
it is.
sure. One thing that came that I was thinking when we were talking about the music, and you were talking about Stairway to Heaven and the messages behind that. If there's reverse messages in music, does that mean anybody who's listening to that song, although they're not hearing the reverse speech, they are being programmed and conditioned by the reverse speech or subliminal message that's in?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use the word programming. I would use the word influenced. We do hear the reversals of each other. It is a communication process. Electroencephalograph testing that we've undertaken shows the brain clearly responding to the reverse phrases. I've found many instances of entire conversations backwards where questions are asked and answers are subsequently given. So we know it can be heard. We know it's communication. I believe we still have conscious free will to either accept or reject the message. That's why I don't like the word programming. I use the word influence. I don't believe it negates our free will. However, like anything, if you listen to any forward speech repeatedly for a long period of time, you will start to become influenced by it. The same is true of reverse speech. If you listen to that same music or that same track over and over again, eventually the reversals will have an impact. But it's up to you whether you are influenced or not. So that's why I don't like to use the word programming.
Do you think some of the reverse speech in music or famous speeches is put there purposefully, or it's not? It's simply by the person who's doing the speech, or can it be implemented purposely, like subliminal messages?
Right. There are examples in music where the backward messages are placed there quite deliberately. That's called backward masking when that happens. It's a simple technique in the recording studio just to overlay another soundtrack backwards. Sometimes people get confused between the two. You've got deliberate backward messages and you've got unintentional backward messages. They're two different phenomena. I've never found any deliberate backward messages in human speech. I've never found any attempt to manipulate speech to make it say something different backwards. Whether that happens or not, I don't believe it does. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of, if we go back to that first one you played where you discovered that it was childhood grief and trauma that was creating money issues or lack of in the now, do you find that sometimes the very realization of that was the trigger, then the whole problem collapses?
Oh, yes, I do find that. Yes, I know exactly what you're asking. Here, let me play you another example that illustrates this. This is a I'm going to play an example of a lady who came to me with relationship issues, and her relationships would always break up. She would find a new boyfriend, and it would break up.
Oh, I think you wrote about this in one of your books.
Yes, I probably have used this example.
One of your other interviews. I think I've heard this one before, and I was hoping you might use it. It's very good.
So here she is talking about a friend of hers and how her latest relationship broke up. So here's the forwards.
The night that it happened, my friend Cheryl was just telling me about how, what we believe we then create, and it just shifted, and that's when I just.
So she talks about the relationship breaking up, the night that it happened, and backwards she says, "I've been molested."
I've been molested.
Gosh, that's a clear one.
Very clear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And she wasn't aware of it. It was her unconscious.
Oh no, she was aware of it. She was aware of it. She'd been molested regularly by a family member growing up, but she'd never told anyone. She hadn't told friends or family. No one knew. And to suddenly get that reversal come out in her backwards messages, she was shocked. She was stunned, and she just broke down in tears, and they just came flooding out. And she told me the whole story, and that one reversal was able to shift the whole therapeutic process and to deal with the real issue that was creating the relationship problems.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's
absolutely.
It's like the unconscious mind decides it's time to speak.
That's right. Yes.
And so obviously this doesn't happen as you're speaking and a consultation with a client. I guess you record the session, and then you have to go back and listen.
That's right.
And find those sections. So that must be quite a detailed task to do.
It's a very time-intensive, difficult task doing reverse speech. Yes, I spend the majority of my days with headphones on, transcribing tapes forwards and backwards. It's what's distracted people over the years from learning it, because it's so tough. You need to have a good ear. You need to be familiar with electronics. You got to know basic audio, which I cover in my courses. But the work involved has put people off from learning it over the years. because it is very time intensive, painstaking task. So I mean,
have you been able to find a way to, I mean, when you're doing a session with a client and questioning them and allowing them to speak, do you get clues of when and where the reverse speech may be happening?
Yes, I do. Yes,
So
yeah, I've become fairly familiar with it now. There's either a change in tonality. You'll often you get pauses and stutters and stammers in speech. A lot of those inconsistencies of speech are there to create the speech reversals. So yes, I can tell, but it still doesn't take away from the time-intensive task. One of my dreams is, and I'm working towards this right now, is to have artificial intelligence be able to transcribe the tapes in reverse. And I've started looking into that. I'm making some inquiries now. Once we can get that established, it's a whole game changer.
wow, wouldn't that be? Because I'm just thinking, normally, yes, as a therapist, consultant, mentor, whatever, obviously there's preparation work before your client comes, when your client comes, and also a little afterwards. But generally, it's happening in the moment with your client, whereas this is heavily not burdened, it's heavily on the therapist, to take those hours and hours and hours and then find that and then bring the client back in and say, well, this is what's going on. How do clients respond when they hear, the reverse speech? Do most of them say, oh my God, that like the one that you've just played us with, the being molested and the grief one? Does it kind of, we always say when you kind of like hit the linchpin, you see a big physiological shift, right?
Yeah.
When you're working with clients, you're kind of near the knuckle.
Yeah.
So do you see that kind of like a complete breakdown? Or have there been times when people kind of like deny and say no, yet the unconscious doesn't lie? It's not in its nature. It's not its own direction.
Both instances occur. Nowadays, after I've been doing therapy with reverse speech for 40 years, nowadays, majority of my clients accept reversals gratefully and are looking forward to change. That wasn't always the way. Back in my early days, I had a lot of denial, and that was because I was unfamiliar myself with how to relay this. I mean, sometimes the unconscious can get really in your face and your back gets up and you say, oh no, I don't want to see that. No, that's not true. And it's really got to be done with a lot of tact, a good bedside manner, which I've developed over the years. However, I still do have the occasional client who gets very upset by the reversals and storms out in a huff, but it doesn't happen often nowadays.
No, and I would imagine they come back because sometimes we don't want to hear the truth.
Right.
Do you have a kind of set format of questions that you go through with a client to start where obviously understanding what the challenge or issue is? Do you have a sort of set list of questions that you found help elicit or allow the unconscious to speak its truth, to literally come forth? It's almost like a mini me, isn't it? That you allow a mini me to come out.
Look, I use a lot of NLP techniques, like the meta model, for example, is a wonderful form of questioning. But generally, I try to keep the conversations very casual and free-flowing. Reverse speech occurs most in casual, free-flowing conversations. It occurs a lot less in structured situations where questions are thrown out. There's reasons for that. Well, the reason mainly is reverse speech is the right brain hemisphere speaking. And the more left brain and control we get in our speech, the less reversals occur. So it's essential to have a right brain, casual, relaxed conversation going. And that negates wanting to use specific questions. However, it's built into my whole style. I've developed quite a good technique over the years in working with it, and of course I teach this in my classes, how to conduct questions and lead the conversation in such a way that you get the most number of reversals. There's been a big learning curve learning this.
So typically
Yeah.
working with a client, you sort of see the client have that conversation,
Yes.
then you do the work,
Yes.
they come back, you play them
Yes.
the reversals.
Yes.
As I said, sometimes I would imagine just hearing the reversals, the whole problem collapses because they realize what it is, there's a release. Or from then, you know the direction the intervention's going to take in terms to tidy things up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, I do. Yeah. It's and like you say, look, the reversals are therapeutic in and of themselves. To hear the voice of your spirit speaking, which is what I believe reverse speech is, the voice of the spirit. To hear the voice of your spirit speaking is just marvelous. Here, let me play you an example. This is one of my favorite examples of all time. This is a clear example of someone's spirit speaking to them. This is a man who had money problems, and he's talked to a tape recorder about his money issues. So here we go.
Does it further for us to put more energy and money and effort?
That's all I got of the forwards. And he says backwards, "You're frightened, lean on me."
You're frightened, lean on me. You're frightened, lean on me.
And that's his spirit talking to him, saying, "Hey, I know you're frightened. I know you're worried. Just lean on me. Trust in me. I will get you through this." And we do not understand the power of our unconscious mind to work through issues. And many people don't listen to it, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
But the unconscious, or the spirit, whatever you want to call it, has all knowledge and all wisdom. And if you can tap into that, you can get the answers you're looking for.
Wow. Now, we focus mainly on therapeutic interventions. However, I know you've also worked with businesses in
Yes.
terms of reverse speech. So what would be some examples? Why would a business come to you? Or I'm guessing a business will come to you because, you know, communication issues, financial issues, success issues, growth,
Well,
those kind of things.
It'll give you amazing insight into the business, whether it's going to work or not. For example, here's someone talking about their business. Listen, this will illustrate the point.
He is very, very excited about setting up a seminar stroke educational business with me and Sarge and Pete as well.
And earn a massive fund with this.
Earn a massive fund with this.
You hear that one? No, that was actually not as clear as I thought it was. Let me play a clearer one. Hang on, let me play a little bit.
No, I couldn't catch that one.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
what
okay.
was he saying? Earn what?
Earn a massive fun with this.
Okay.
But let me play another one that's clearer. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, in Australia, we're charging $1,500 for 3 days. Over there, it'd be $1,500 US for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So that is exciting for me.
He's talking about going to America to do workshops. Back, which he says, start off with it. It will be profit.
Start off with it. It will be profit.
You should hear that one.
Start off with it. It will be profit.
Can you hear that one?
Yes.
So that's his unconscious telling him this business will be a success. Go ahead and do it. And if it's not going to be a success, then reversals will say that too. Look, I've got a few clients who invest on the stock market, and before they're about to make the next purchase, they will call me and I'll reverse them and tell them whether I think it's going to be a success or not. And I'm accurate most of the time. So it's
so that client, did they go off to the States, do workshops and be massively successful?
Yes, they did indeed. Yes, they made a lot of money. Yes.
So it's like teaching them to learn to trust their intuition and their own inner voice.
That's right. And well, that's why businesses come to me for work, to find out their intuition, to find out their inner knowing, their inner knowledge. And it will give them amazing directions as to where to go in their work. Right.
Now, you spent a long time in the US. I mean, you're based in Australia now.
Yes.
But in the US, you were working for some of the government agencies as well, I believe.
Yes, I was. In 91, I gave a 5-day workshop to the CIA, the FBI, who else was there? Naval Intelligence, Secret Service. There was a couple others, I can't remember who they were now. They were absolutely fascinated by reverse speech. Look, once you hear the examples, it pretty well throws the skepticism out of the water, you know, and they're absolutely fascinated. The FBI claimed that they were going to do a research project into reverse speech, look into it more. CIA, I don't know what they did with it. However, if you Google CIA reverse speech, you'll see on their website they've got reverse speech research listed. So what they've done with it, I don't know. It's anyone's guess. The FBI, I worked for them during the Waco siege with David Koresh. I did a personality profile on David Koresh for them. I've worked for police departments over the years. Nothing since I've been back home in Australia, though. It was all in the United States. And reverse speech has been amazing. It will tell you whether they've committed the crime or not, where the evidence is hidden, motives, name of accomplices in crime. Where the lie detector ends is where reverse speech begins. Now, on this note, let me play you a reversal on a murderer. This is a chap by the name of Scott Peterson, and he was found guilty of murdering his wife. She was decapitated, and here he is being interviewed by a reporter before the criminal trial. He said, "Did you murder your wife?"
Did you murder your wife? No, I did not.
So he denies the crime. No, I did not. But backwards he says, "Neck, I hit hard."
Neck, I hit hard.
And again.
Neck, I hit hard.
So whilst he denies it, he's flashing back in his mind to the crime scene, and he hit her hard on the back of the neck. She was decapitated. They never found her head.
Goodness. So do you still do a lot with the police departments?
No, I haven't done anything since the police since I've been back home in Australia. No, all my work with the police was when I lived in the United States.
Because really, when you think of this, it has such wide implications. As I said, we started off talking about it mainly in therapy and to help people uncover those blocks to, like you say, get in touch with the spirit within, trust your intuition and your inner guidance system. And really, that can sway into business and so many different areas of your life. Do you find that it also does give people a kind of spiritual awakening as well?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes. There's a very large proportion of reverse speech that is spiritual in nature. I say publicly it's a voice of the unconscious mind. In reality, I believe it's a voice of the spirit. And here's a reversal that illustrates this. This is me on a radio show talking about reverse speech. So here's the forwards.
Sometimes people ask me, does reverse speech endorse any particular religion? And the answer to that is no. There are no deities or religions that reverse speech endorses or says this is right or this is wrong. It just talks about the soul and the endlessness of life.
And backwards I say, it's the voice in heaven.
It's the voice in heaven. It's the voice in heaven.
It is that spiritual voice, a voice of the spirit that is speaking. That is what reverse speech really is. And yes, I do a lot of work with my clients on spiritual matters and spiritual awakenings. And yes, look, I really cannot communicate in the short time how profound reverse speech is in terms of what it communicates, what it reveals. It taps into all aspects of the psyche, conscious, unconscious, collective unconscious, and spirit, and all parts are speaking in reverse. And that's amazing.
So you've always found that inner voice, that reverse voice, is always the truth?
Yes. I've never found it to tell a lie yet. No.
What's
never.
been your biggest kind of like, when you've gone kind of like, holy moly, okay, wow. What was that in the early days, or do you still come across things that, make you go, oh, because I'm
yes.
shocked.
Yes, I still do come across things that make me go, wow. Yes, I still love this technology as much today as I did back when I first started. And look, I'm always learning new things. I'm always building new roads and paving new territory. And, You know, I've always got my little research projects going. Right now, it's artificial intelligence. That's what I'm working on now. But there's always something to fascinate you with it.
So what was the biggest aha for you in all these 40 years of reverse speech? What's been the biggest wow?
Probably some of the premonition reversals.
Tell me more about those.
Reversals that reveal the truth of the future. I'll play you one that really gave me a wow. This is JFK in 1961 when he was elected president, giving his inaugural address. So here's the forwards.
The slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
Backwards, he says, head is hitting the car.
Head is hitting the car. Head is hitting the car.
You hear that one?
Yes, very.
That was a real aha for me. I go, oh my gosh, that's what happened. He was shot in the head in the limousine. So here he is in 1961 having a premonition of his 1963 assassination. So that was a real aha. I must admit, when I found that reversal, I found that. Let me see, when did I do the Kennedy assassination? About 8 years ago, I did a lot of work on the Kennedy assassination. I found the reversal then, and it was a real aha. Yes, it was. Yeah.
So what do you kind of do reverse speech on for your own kind of interest now? Obviously, you're working with clients, but are there things you've seen on TV or heard on the radio or a speech and you think, let me do a reverse on that?
Yeah, look, I'm always doing reversals on the media. I do a few nationally syndicated radio shows in America, and they always want the dirt on politicians, you know. So that's a bit of a hobby for me. Well, hobby's the wrong word, but yeah, I like, for example, we've got the Democratic National Convention on now. I plan to reverse Tim Walz after I finish with you, you know, and. So he's a Democratic nominee for Vice President, Tim Walz. So, yes, I have my little projects, media. You know, they don't make me any money, but they get me publicity, which is which is good.
Kind of like nice to be in the know, isn't it? Really.
That's right. Yeah.
So I know you run training programs, and you alluded to earlier that it's quite a detailed training. It's not come for a few days, because there's a lot of different aspects to learn, and I can also see the attraction of being able to get AI involved that will cut the time down enormously. But what's the state now? If people, I mean, you've got 20 books that people can read. Also on your website, there's a book that people can download for free. What's the training? Because the training, I would imagine a lot of the training can be done online. People don't have to be in person. And also that the sessions can be done online as well.
Yes, I do all my work online. I have no local clients in my hometown at all. So all my work is done online. I forgot the first question you asked me.
I asked about training.
Yes, sorry, training.
How the training works, because I would imagine there's different levels and different layers, because it's not a quick go for a couple of days and you're done. This is quite a calling.
It's not at all go for a couple of days and you're gone. You got to look at this as a university course, basically. The training lasts for 2 years. Year 1 teaches you how to hear reversals accurately and how to interpret them. Year 2 teaches you how to use it in therapy, teaches hypnosis, changing behaviors and patterns. We have classes once every 2 weeks for 3 hours of class, but that's where when the class is finished is when you start, because there's a lot of homework. I tell people they need to spend 15 hours a week at least on homework. And that's sitting on your desk with headphones on, learning how to find reversals. So it's very time intensive. It's a lot harder than what it appears to be. The examples I've played you today, I've already found and isolated them, but to actually find them amongst the gibberish requires a lot of listening skill. That's why I want to get AI doing it, and that's the real that's the real difficult part, is learning how to find them. And then, of course, interpreting them. There's so many different ways to interpret them. I've developed quite a few protocols for how to interpret reversals accurately, which I obviously cover in my training course. Yeah.
Okay, and so that means, I would imagine, over the years you've got quite a pool of therapists around the globe now who have trained with.
I wish I had more than what I had. There's about a dozen around the globe. I wish there
Okay.
was more than that. A lot of people
Which in
take the
some ways
training,
is
and
good, because then they have a niche market.
that's true. They really do. Yeah, they really do. Yeah. I wish the field was bigger than what it was. It's a time-intensive part of learning the technology that puts people off. Where I used to go to a weekend seminar, you get your certificate, and
Yes, that's not going to happen with this.
that's not going to happen with reverse speech. No, it's not. No,
Okay,
you got to look at it as a commitment.
So it really is hoping that the AI starts pushing that in and helps people save time. But people can still book a session with you online. How would that work?
Go to my website, reversespeech.com. My email address is there. I'll give it to you. It's backwards, as in backwards, at reversespeech.com. Backwards at reversespeech.com. Very easy address to remember, but it's on my website, which the website is reversespeech.com, and my personal site is davidoates.com. So there you go. And my books are all available on Amazon. So just Google me on Amazon and you'll find all my books.
And there is a free book for download on your website, I believe. So if people listening would like to discover more about this fascinating topic and a way to, as I said, get in touch with what your spirit really wants to share with you, what it's ready to heal, what it's ready to bring forth, this I feel it supersedes many hours, years even of therapy to understand what your blocks are, allowing your unconscious and your spirit to come forth and give you those messages. What a gift. And then to have you, David, be able to find those, that is a real gift. That's, the work that you do is very much needed and very noble. So thank you for all the research you've done over the years.
You're most welcome. My pleasure.
That's been.
Thank you for having me. No.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into this episode with my guest, David John Oates, and I highly recommend you go to his website, reversespeech.com, and discover more about reverse speech, and you can also download a free copy of one of his books. I'm thrilled to be sharing possibilities with you, and if you want more, then check out the link at thepossibilityhub.com, and if you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please share, review, like, or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot, or check out my YouTube channel. And remember, you're always more than you think you are.